Kibole Wolf fam, this is Mr. Vieyra with Thursday's Wolf Den message. So let's get right to my Wolf Howl today. It goes to the teachers who invest their time in their students' stories by leading after-school clubs. So you know who you are. I'm talking to you, Miss Kohler, Mr. Richard, and Mr. Simonton. Thank you so much for that work that you do with our students. I know that they appreciate it, and we do too. The quote today is by Bell Hooks, and she says this: "Love is a combination of care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust." Let's go out there today, treat people with care, be committed to people's stories, their knowledge of them, be responsible with them, respectful and trusting with them. Here's what my would you rather. Would you rather have a high salary in a job you hate or have a low salary in a job you love? What do you think? Let me know when you see me out there today on the quad, or maybe tomorrow morning on the way in. And so these are today's topics. So we got Women's History Month highlight, Anime Club announcement, an 8th grade reminder only for my 8th graders, so 6th and 7th graders, you better not listen. HOWL community reminders, Wolf Grub, the dad joke, the thumbnail of the week, and then a video on social emotional learning that I think you'll appreciate.
Escaping slavery, risking everything to save her family, leading a military raid, championing the cause of women's suffrage. These are just a handful of the accomplishments of one of America's most courageous heroes. Harriet Tubman was born Araminta Ross in Dorchester County, Maryland, in the early 1820s. Born into chattel slavery, Araminta, or Minty, was the 5th of 9 children. 2 of Minty's older sisters were sold to a chain gang. Even as a small child, Minty was hired out to different owners who subjected her to whippings and punishment. Young Minty's life changed forever on an errand to a neighborhood store. There, an overseer threw a 2-pound weight at a fugitive enslaved person, missed, and struck Minty instead. Her injury caused her to experience sleeping spells, which we know of today as narcolepsy, for the rest of her life. Minty's owner tried to sell her, but there were no buyers for an enslaved person who fell into sleeping spells. She was instead put to work with her father, Ben Ross, who taught her how to lumber. Lumbering increased Minty's physical strength and put her in touch with free black sailors who shipped the wood to the north. From them, Minty learned about the secret communications that occurred along trade routes, information that would prove invaluable later in her life. In this mixed atmosphere of free and enslaved blacks working side by side, Minty met John Tubman, a free black man she married in 1844. After marriage, she renamed herself Harriet after her mother. Harriet Tubman's owner died in 1849. When his widow planned to sell off her enslaved human beings, Harriet feared she would be sold away from everyone she loved. She had heard of an underground railroad, a secret network of safe houses, boat captains, and wagon drivers willing to harbor fugitive enslaved people on their way north. So Tubman fled with 2 of her brothers, Ben and Harry. They eventually turned back, fearing they were lost. But in one of her sleeping spells, Harriet dreamed that she could fly like a bird. Looking down below, she saw the path to liberation, and in the autumn of 1849, she set out on her own, following the North Star to Pennsylvania and to freedom. Tubman returned to the South 13 times to free her niece, brothers, parents, and many others. She earned the nickname Black Moses and worked diligently with fellow abolitionists to help enslaved people escape, first to the North and later to Canada. Harriet Tubman worked as a Union Army nurse, scout, and spy during the Civil War. In 1863, she became the first woman in United States history to plan and lead a military raid, liberating nearly 700 enslaved persons in South Carolina. After the war, the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution legally abolished slavery, while the 14th expanded citizenship and the 15th gave voting rights to formerly enslaved black men. But she was undaunted, and she persisted. She raised funds for formerly enslaved persons and helped build schools and a hospital on their behalf. In 1888, Tubman became more active in the fight for women's right to vote. In 1896, she appeared at the founding convention of the National Association of Colored Women in Washington, D.C., and later at a women's suffrage meeting in Rochester, New York. There she told the audience, "I was a conductor on the Underground Railroad, and I can say what many others cannot. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger." As her fame grew, various friends and allies helped her in the fight to collect a veteran's pension for her service in the Union Army. In 1899, she was finally granted $20 a month. In a fitting twist of fate, the United States Treasury announced in 2016 that Tubman's image will appear on a redesigned $20 bill. Harriet Tubman died on March 10, 1913. Even on her deathbed at age 91, she kept the freedom of her people in mind. Her final words were, "I go away to prepare a place for you." If you're inspired by Harriet Tubman's life and work, we highly recommend the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Underground Railroad. This wildly inventive and courageous book follows protagonist Cora through the trials and horrors of escaping slavery in the South.
This week's Anime Club announcement. This week we present an episode of Chihayafuru. This series introduces us to the Japanese card game of Kurata, a game of culture, memory, and quick reflexes. If you want to join, check in at 7:45 in the morning in the library on Friday morning. All right, this is a message for the 8th graders. So 7th graders and 6th graders, if you're paying attention right now, you better stop. This is for the 8th graders. So 8th grade students, high school programming is happening. Starting this morning, if you were attending Lakewood, you would have been called out of your class during first period and gone over to see the counselors from Lakewood. Make sure that if you have been accepted into one of the programs for one of those high schools that you see listed here, whether it's Lakewood, Milliken, Wilson, Cabrillo, Renaissance, or Poly, that you make sure you make it to that appointment. It's so important for you and your programs, and also the classes you're scheduling for next year, the classes that you want. You'll want to get those, and so make sure that you make it to that appointment on time. So we have some HOWL community celebrations that we want to bring up. So remember, we are a community who howls. We are humanitarians who overcome through wisdom and leadership. And so as a community who howls, this is what we celebrate. We're celebrating a decrease in tardies. 7th grader, this is a shout out to you. My 7th grade list is getting really small between first and third period in terms of tardies. We're also seeing a lot of uniform wearing, passes in the hallway when students are headed to the restroom. Make sure that never mind. I wanted to, and thank you also for informing administrators if you have any safety concerns. We appreciate you people, and we love you. So just like we talked about our community celebrations, now we have some community reminders. So, we're part of the HOWL Familia, right? Which are humanitarians who overcome through wisdom and leadership. And so as members of this family, we want to make sure that we take care of our campus. The way that we can do that is by making sure that we get all the litter to the trash cans. Do not place your trash on the campus grounds, on the quad, in the hallways. That's not what that's for. Put it in the trash can, please. Make sure that we keep our walls clean, that you eat your lunch at the lunch benches, and also that you stay out of the hallways during lunchtime. During lunchtime, we're in the quad or the blacktop. Those are the only two places that you can be. Do not go into the hallways without permission during lunch. So Wolfie, right now, he is watching the soccer match. He's not with me. I am not with him. Let's go, girls. Go get him. So for lunch today, we have chicken and mashed potato bowl, hamburger, house-made peach parfait, pizza, salads, and sandwiches. For breakfast tomorrow morning, you'll have your choice of cinnamon roll, French toast sticks, yogurt with house-made granola, and then you also for lunch have choice of house-made spaghetti with meatballs, house-made chili cheese nachos, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, pizza, salad, and sandwiches. If Wolfie would hear, he would be upset that there's no bacon or sausage. Poor Wolfie. This is our dad joke of the day. So what did the custodian say when they jumped out of the closet? So this one's for Carlos, for Miss Liz, for Mr. Haji, Mr. Adrian, Mr. Mark. What did the custodian say when they jumped out of the closet? Supplies! Get it? Yeah. So the Thursday thumbnail is by Geraldine Solis, 7th grader. Good work, Geraldine. I can see there's Wolfie getting his mouth around some bacon. There's some anime club imagery there. An LOL, washing our hands, a would you rather, the wolf den, all some good stuff. Some handsome bitmoji by Mr. Vieyra. All right, good work, Geraldine. Keep it up. Coming up next, you'll be watching a video, a social emotional learning video on self-management. And so this video, I think, will be a good thing for you to talk about with your teachers. I will be posting some questions at the end that you can discuss during your wolf den with your teachers and with each other as classmates. Pay close attention. I think this will be really helpful for you. Enjoy.
A set of skills that are critical to kids' success in school and beyond. Self-management has several names and many concepts associated with it. We're also going to talk about it in terms of marshmallows, stop signs, squeezy balls, and teaching. Let's start with the marshmallows. In the late 1960s, a Stanford professor named Walter Mischel wanted to gauge young children's ability to delay gratification, so he conducted a groundbreaking self-management experiment. He and his researchers took preschool kids and sat them in a room in front of a marshmallow or other treat. The researcher would say, "I'm going to leave for 15 minutes. If you would like to eat the marshmallow, then eat it. If you can wait until I come back, I'll give you a second one and you can eat them both." That's it. That was the whole experiment. Mischel found that despite their best efforts, 2/3 of the kids ate the marshmallow before the researcher came back. In the years since then, the experiment has been copied many times with kids from different communities, ethnicities, and backgrounds in a range of countries all over the world. Typically, 2/3 of the kids eat the marshmallow. Here's where the results of Michel's experiment get really interesting. After running the experiment a bunch of times in California, his team tracked down all the marshmallow test kits they could find 10 years later, and 20 years, and 30, and 40, and they found some startling results. The kids who were able to wait for the second treat scored better on the SATs, once you control for IQ, were rated as more academically and socially competent by their parents, and had a greater ability to plan, handle stress, and concentrate without becoming distracted, even decades later. There has been a bunch of research that builds on or extends these findings. One larger, more comprehensive study followed 1,000 children born in the early 70s in Dunedin, New Zealand. Focusing on self-management, researchers interviewed the children as they grew from 4 to 11. They also gave questionnaires to parents, teachers, and peers. Then they tracked down the original kids when they were in their 30s. They found that the children's ratings on self-management between the ages of 4 and 11 correlated with whether or not they were high school or college graduates, addicted to alcohol or drugs, economically stable or living paycheck to paycheck, involved in criminal activity. All these results lead to one big question. What does this mean for the kids who ate the first marshmallow? For that matter, what does it mean for the kids who don't have self-management between the ages of 4 and 11? Does this mean if the child hasn't developed the right self-management skills early, her whole life path is much worse? Here's what Walter Mischel says about this exact issue.
We're talking about correlations that are significant. We're not talking about a destiny for an individual. So I want to be very clear that a branding would be completely missing the point, particularly since the most exciting findings about the marshmallow experiments are the ease with which it is possible to change an individual's ability to delay gratification.
And there are ways to do that.
There are very straightforward ways to do it that connect with how the brain works. The interpretation to be taken from the findings is that this is an enormously important skill. It has predictive qualities. It has protective effects, but it is teachable. It is changeable.
In fact, Michelle showed that self-management could be taught in an experiment similar to the marshmallow test. In this version, researchers gave the kids helpful ideas before the test. They said, imagine the marshmallow is actually a flat picture, or a cloud, or there is a bug crawling on it. Suddenly, the kids could wait far longer. So there are strategies and techniques you can give kids to help them nurture and grow their self-management muscles, many of which can help students in longer-lasting, more profound ways. These strategies extend beyond envisioning a situation differently. They involve teaching kids to avoid certain situations, modify their surroundings to reduce distractions, manage their emotions constructively, shift their attention, organize to complete tasks, and plan how to overcome obstacles that may arise. Still, despite growing research on the topic, we're in the early days of learning the best ways to help students build self-management skills. The techniques that work, or even just what to focus on, can vary from student to student in a single class. But one thing we do know is this. Teachers in the classroom and parents at home tend to notice self-management issues the most when something goes wrong. A student who loses track of his assignments and comes to class unprepared. A student who constantly interrupts peers and teachers. A student who fidgets constantly and can't focus in the classroom. This could be any kid, at any age, at any ability level. What adults normally do is see this behavior and tell the student to stop. Stop messing around, you have to do your homework. Stop fidgeting. Or like in Michelle's experiment, don't eat the marshmallow. Now, when you do that, you're basically telling the child you have to stop, and you have to figure out how to do it. You've just put it all on the child, and the problem is, maybe the child doesn't know how. For whatever reason, they never learned this particular self-management skill. Saying stop doesn't fix that. So what if rather than saying stop, you say, instead of what you're doing now, which isn't working too well, why don't you do this? For that kid who is fidgeting all the time, what if you give him a squeezy ball and say, squeeze this ball as much as you want because you need to do something with your hands and that will make it easier for you to pay attention in class. Instead of just saying stop or no, you're saying, here's a strategy to try. One of the findings of the original marshmallow test is that it's primarily a test of whether a child has learned particular self-management strategies. Kids who stare at the marshmallow and simply try their hardest not to eat it, well, they pretty much always eat it. The kids who have a strategy to shift their attention by singing a song, walking around, putting their forehead on the table, covering their eyes, or any number of things are best able to wait for the second marshmallow. As we now know, shifting attention is one of a broad range of self-management strategies. What works and what to focus on can vary from child to child. But the self-management strategies as a whole are teachable, and like muscles, they can be strengthened in all students.